keep getting ready to talk, and I'm like, as soon as I do, you're going to start the intro.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Three Guys and a Pie podcast. I'm your host Jonathan, here with my co-host Gary.
Hello!
Joined by our guest Aaron.
We definitely have sun lamps for ceiling lights.
And our special guest for this evening, Lou.
Yep. Hi. Completely unoffensive intro.
So Gary, I think you had an idea of what you wanted us to talk about in today's episode?
Yeah, today we're talking about time travel. Let's get weird.
So what time travel? That's a fairly broad.
So, we had it was probably 3 weeks ago now. We had the conversation over breakfast. What we would do if we had a time machine and could go back in time to witness events. Also, we should probably introduce our friend Lou a little bit more, because he's never been on the podcast before.
We never really even introduced ourselves.
I mean, that's fair, but tell us a little bit about yourself, Lou. Nothing doxable, of course.
Nothing doxable. I'm from the East. American East. I should probably... Is that doxable?
This is going to be a great episode.
Yeah. I'm a normal person. Completely normal. Totally human. And I'm excited to be here. I thought about this question a little bit before we got here, and I got to tell you guys, I don't really know exactly how we're going to, how far we can get into this, because when were hot tubs made? 1960s? There's not that much history we can really talk about.
Oh, God. Oh, yes. This was a great idea.
Yeah. That's about as much about me as I can legally say, by the way.
It's actually kind of funny, because I know you don't listen to the podcast, but we constantly joke that Jonathan is not a human being. So your introduction just made it so much better. So who wants to kick this off? I know everyone here.
I think Aaron has probably the most ideas from what we were able to gather. So
And
maybe he should start off. That way if we run out of steam, he can buffer the end.
Well, I intended to prep a little bit for this and have, multiple places, but I really only ended up with 2 because I did 0 prep. But I'm sure I'll come up with more as we talk about this.
Well, you also had some of the, more interesting reasons, too. From what we were talking about before. The way your thought process was on it was definitely, I never really thought of it that way, but, you do have a point.
So I think what you're talking about is when I first brought this up, and I said I want to go back to an ancient battlefield, say, Greek or Roman times, and see a giant battlefield the day after the battle. Because I want to know what it looks like when you have tens of thousands of people all dying in a single field. Because, first of all, the stench is probably awful. Second of all,
Fair.
What does it look like? Just mounds of bodies or just a field of bodies? Visually. I can imagine a little bit, but I don't really know, right? And the third one is I want to know what happens to all the blood. Because when you have thousands of people dying on a field, that's thousands of gallons of blood. Where does it go? Does it just coat everything? Does it make a river of blood?
Would it really screw with you if you got there and it's just all cleaned up in a day? They're super tidy about it?
Well, there are accounts from different time periods where people would loot for days and weeks afterwards and stuff. So obviously, and people would actually go to tour the battlefields because it was such a incredible sight.
I heard that about Gettysburg.
I mean, we still do that at Gettysburg, but, it's not as exciting anymore.
You can't legally do that at Gettysburg.
It is...
Trust me, I've
Out
tried.
there with the shovel.
It's funny that you said about the gallons of blood, because at the Massacre of Verdun, which was carried out by...
Wait. Say that again?
Yeah.
The Massacre of Verdun.
Okay.
It's the type of forest. A Verdun forest.
Verdun. Verdun. Listen, you fucks. I am Pennsylvania Dutch. Shit does not come out right, alright?
I'm not even going to correct you. Let's just go through the whole podcast with that pronunciation.
Alright. Anyway, the Massacre of Verdun or however the fuck you say it,
You got closer that time.
which was carried out by King Charlemagne, where he massacred 4,000 Saxons in a day.
Oh, okay. You're not talking about what I thought you were talking about.
No. He massacred
Same place, though, I think.
he massacred 4,000 Saxons in a day because they wouldn't convert to Christianity. And they said that the blood was literally flowing like a river to the outskirts of the town. And they just heaped the bodies where they lay. They buried a few, and then they were like, fuck it.
They'll decompose.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
They're heathens. Fuck them.
Those are the kinds of sites you don't see in modern day, and for good reason.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Thankfully.
You know, we can talk, because again, the premise of this is you're observing only. You can't, like, interfere or anything, obviously. So what's done is done. It's not like I'm, like, would let this happen just so I could see it, but...
Yeah.
You know, but from like a military history standpoint, like I'd like to see how ancient battles are fought, because we have ideas on formations and stuff that have like come down in the history books and stuff. But ancient battles, people don't go into a lot of detail about the actual way these battles were fought, because it was just kind of assumed knowledge at that point. So, you know, we're left in the dark a lot with stuff like that, because we don't know. It's not like you have two charging formations like you see in Hollywood, because people did the math and the physics of the human beings when they're in these formations. You would literally squeeze the front ranks to death if you just like charged opposing formations. So they're like, well, that's not how it's done. You're probably like slowly walking up, and then like you're stabbing people with spears and stuff, but we don't know for sure. So
Well, the interesting part about like the rivers of blood and mountains of bodies things is once technology gets good enough, we could probably simulate something like that too. Like a total sensory immersion for something like that.
Oh,
Where we know all the parameters, we just put it together, and you put this like special helmet on that lets you like see and smell and feel everything.
Oh, I thought you were talking about just like a logistics standpoint where it's like, okay, let's run the simulation. How much blood, and with this topography,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Where
And,
is
like,
it going?
but also like put you in that place. And
that would be-
you
that
could
would
even
be
like
kinda
smell it and
Can't wait to put my
taste it.
Oculus on and just see unimaginable horror. Not that I'm not into how the podcast is going so far, but I think I took mine in a little bit of a different direction.
When I said we're getting weird, we're getting weird.
Let's get weird.
Yeah. I don't know, Lou.
I don't think that's exactly what we had in mind either. That was one of the parts we wanted to talk about.
Well, then go ahead, Lou. I guess we'll put you on the spot next.
Okay, mine's a little bit strange, probably a little bit outside of the parameters of what we were looking at, but like my thought process on it was I would want to see something that didn't really have a historical record to it. So I thought about like essentially the first native people moving over to America over the land bridge.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
Now, it's not like a one-day event. It would probably be like, thousands of years. I don't know. I'm bad with time. But anyway, I'm not a history person.
Some time frame between 1 second and 1 billion years.
Yes. But to my understanding of like the ecological shift from when they moved over, it was very horrible for the people coming over. On top of like the environment being rough and a new environment in which you have to adapt to. Like, there's cave bears, there's cave hyenas, like...
Everything lived in caves back then.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just talking out my ass, but I remember hearing, like, stories, like, people talk about how, like, bears, like, how they got their name or something. It was, like, supposedly supposed to be, like, this, like, it just means, like, brown, I guess, in, like, the very root of the word. And it was just, like, this idea of this horrible brown creature that just comes. These cave bears were just like fucking massive. Just come out and just grab somebody and just drag them off. And they're so large, and you just have spears. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah, because I heard something whereas like prehistoric bears, the bears that these native peoples would have been running into, are nothing like the bears nowadays where when they stand they're like 10 feet tall. Like if they get like all the way up, they were something like 14 foot tall. Because that's how just fucking massive they were as like creatures. So yeah, that would be absolutely terrifying to see like a 14-foot tall fucking Kodiak killer just come at you.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, if you think about it, it's really interesting to see what the ecological shift would be, because the overall view of what happened when we moved into the Americas is that we just like destroyed the ecology over thousands of years, just a mass extinction event, similar to what we're doing now, but just like on a more level playing field, I guess. You know,
The
We're not
animals
ju-
can actually still fight back.
Yes. So, I mean, I think it'd be really interesting to look at that from you have no historical record and just see that kind of happen over time. Plus, like the more personal view of the individual tribes and people that were there. Like, there's probably so many really cool events and really interesting, thoughtful leaders that are just like completely disappeared to time because you can't actually record anything from that time.
Yeah, a lot of things before any kind of history was kept.
We could go back and see the first dick joke fucking drawn on the wall.
Yeah, no, I could definitely spend like multiple lifetimes just going around the different hunter-gatherer groups.
Yeah.
And like see what their way of life is, see what their society is and stuff like that. Because that's super interesting to think about because we don't really know, you know?
Yeah.
Like we can look at modern hunter-gatherers that were supposedly more or less untouched and uncontacted, but it's not really the same, you know?
Yeah, it is always funny too. Like you hear people talk about Alexander the Great being like the best military leader of all time, and then it's like, I don't know. There's plenty of people we don't know about.
That's true.
Give them some credit. I mean, these guys are fighting cave bears.
The greatest strategic minds of their time.
You're next.
I'm next.
Yeah, you're
So I thought we were going in a nice little counterclockwise circle here.
Oh,
Gary.
fuck no. The guests go first and now it's you.
So I think the first thing I'd want to go back and see is like the wonders of ancient engineering. Like just watch the pyramids being built, or like watch the Great Wall of China being built. Like how the hell they went about doing it, what it actually looked like when it was like brand new. Because like now we've got like the used car version of the Great Pyramids. I want like the new car smell of the Great Pyramids.
Just watch Ancient Aliens. What are you doing?
Yeah, and were they built for the aliens?
Oh my god.
Who knows?
You guys are worse than my father.
Gotta turn up the extreme time lapse setting.
But like just going back and seeing these things when they were still new, or like cities that have risen and fallen, and like just the structural how they built things without modern day machinery. I think would be cool to watch and see.
See the city of Rome when it was great, and not when it everyone more or less abandoned it. It got sacked multiple times.
See how many days it actually took them to build Rome?
It's like this: how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop?
I like to sit there with a clipboard and just count OSHA violations. Well, those 20 slaves just got crushed to death. Really should have reinforced that rope.
You know, they really should have been walking under that giant rock.
Oh my god.
Also, seeing like natural disasters, like the eruption at Pompeii.
Oh yeah, that would be neat.
Like just stuff like that. Even more recently, being able to go back to like the locations of natural disasters and just seeing what it's like to be inside a natural disaster like that, like a tsunami or
like the one that hit Japan.
yeah.
Because that was nuts. Along the lines of natural disaster, this isn't quite the same, but like I would want to be at Chernobyl just to witness the chaos that was going on. Because like there was a point where the reactors got so hot that all of the radioactive material just melted right through it. And it just kept going because it was that hot. And it wasn't cooling down anytime soon. It went like 10 feet below the fucking foundation. It was that hot and it just burned all the way through. Like that would be neat. That's a disaster I would like to see.
Yeah, just like things you couldn't experience because of physical bodily limitations.
The asteroid that took out the dinosaurs.
Yeah,
I'd want to
you
see
can find
that.
out how
Yeah.
exactly they went extinct. Was it even an asteroid or was it an alien spaceship?
If our time machine has a time lapse setting, it would be fun to watch the evolution of different species. You know, the evolution of man, where we go from like single cell organism to monkey to like, you know, what we are now.
And then back to monkey.
And then back to monkey.
Turn
yeah.
to monkey.
That's the evolution of like all life on Earth.
Well, right, but it's still a neat process to see, like to watch the time lapse and not have some artist rendition of what it would look like, and like to see how each new instance functions different from the last. Because like obviously a single cell organism is not going to work the same as monkey, so like it would be fun to see like how we went from like single cell organism to like whatever the fuck was next. and however many steps there were there, then monkey, and then however many steps, and then human.
It would be interesting because like we have a relatively a good amount of data for the rough evolution of life on Earth and things like that. Mm-hmm. But what people always forget is like that's like 0.1% of all life that has ever existed on Earth because most of it isn't fossilized or the remains aren't ever intact anymore. Only a small fraction of any life has a chance of even being preserved.
And at the risk of making my environmental science professors and teachers very, very sad, I can weigh in on this since I technically have an environmental science degree, an ecology degree. It's like people think of evolution as just like a bird, and then the bird tries to like crack open a nut and its beak isn't strong enough. So over time, its like beak gets strong enough and then it cracks the nut. But the way evolution actually works, to my understanding, is like that bird can't open the nut and it starves to death.
Yes.
And then another bird that has a slightly stronger beak actually comes by and it can like better fulfill that niche. And eventually it kind of like takes over that niche and outcompetes the other bird. So like, it's not necessarily that you would see like one creature basically become this other creature, but it would be interesting to see like these different mutations these creatures have. You just see something that dies off that probably could have a interesting niche like in our time frame.
Oh yeah, that would be neat.
They could exist now, but they just couldn't exist at the time, or like in just a different place.
Especially if you think about insects that really don't have a very strong fossil record, like the big insects, because there were very big ones.
Yeah, back when the oxygen levels were high enough to allow the type of breathing they do.
Yeah,
that's just CO2 levels.
I thought it was the oxygen. Like
No,
there's a
I think
high
it's
percentage
oxygen.
of oxygen, which allows because when the insects all breathe through their skin, so as you get bigger, your surface area increases at less than their interior increases. So you need when you're breathing through your skin, you have to be able to breathe more
Yeah, that's why
through your skin to support the same amount of body mass.
That's why they were saying, like, if there was 12% more oxygen in the air, spiders could grow to the size of, like, small cars.
Yeah.
Because they were and we could all spontaneously combust, because that's a lot of fucking oxygen in the air.
Yeah. Like since they breathe through their skin, they don't need as much skin to support a larger biomass.
Right. But yeah, that is neat. And I do vaguely remember something from my biology class, which I got a C in. About the evolution of, it's not necessarily like an A to B and adapting to problems in front of you. It's more like, hey, this one's kind of fucked up, but it's working, so we're just gonna run with it, like from a mutation standpoint. So that would be interesting to see, like some of the mutations that just didn't make it.
Yeah.
They got lost on the cutting room floor. I would want, this is kind of along the lines of your, like, the pyramids and the Great Wall. I would want to go to see the Tower of Babylon, because there's descriptions of it in the Bible and there's descriptions of it from scholars, but we still have no fucking clue what this thing would have actually looked like. And there's artist renditions from the Renaissance and whatnot, but we have no idea. And I just want to go and see the Tower of Babylon, and then I want to see it fall. Because that was another, like, crazy biblical thing where the mother of harlots comes down and just destroys the fuck out of Babylon. It was probably more like a really bad windy day, but I still want to see it.
Should that building be wobbling?
Yeah. A lot of the things I would want to go to see have, like, a religious context to them, because it's like, I would want to see The Last Supper, just because who wouldn't want to see Judas betray Christ? See how terrible that might have actually been.
Wouldn't it be really funny if you're there and then Judas is just super fucking awkward about it? It's like, like anybody with prior knowledge could look back and be like, "Oh man, I know I have hindsight to this event, but like, come on, it's totally obvious."
Well, the whole thing is like, the whole shtick was like Christ knew that he was gonna do it, and Judas knew that he had to do it. He couldn't just be like, "Dude, I don't want to," but he knew like he had to do it. So it's not the way that some theological scholars look at it. It's not like Judas hated Christ or did it with malcontent. He just knew that this was like his purpose in the greater scheme of things. And that's why there's conflicting evidence on if you would ask someone, well, all right, so Judas was the great betrayer. Where the fuck did he go? Did he go to hell or what? A lot of people will say, yes, he's in the last circle of hell.
Huh.
But there's a lot of people like...
Along with Brutus and...
Yeah, and who else?
Oh, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But that was the Divine Comedy. That's not even real. As he's talking about the Bible.
Yeah.
But a lot of people would say that he went to heaven because he did the thing that made Christianity. If Judas did not betray Christ, we wouldn't have a religion. So it's like, it's an interesting concept. I would just want to follow Judas around, to be completely honest, because he is the one apostle that we know, like, very little about. Because no one wrote about him. Who wants to learn about the betrayer of the Son of Man?
What a missed opportunity.
Well, the Gospel of Judas is, like, not allowed in the Bible because it talks about some, like, crazy shit, like Jesus Christ showing him, like, magic. Like, actual, like, magic.
Is this your card?
But no, like, some, like, squirrely shit, like blood rites and whatnot. Like, shit that the Catholic Church would not like in their doctrine.
Well, that actually kind of leads into an interesting thing I was thinking about, too, is looking at a religious event and, like, taking a look at how it's interpreted later on to how it actually happened. That would be really cool because, like you said, how there are, like, a bunch of, I guess, testaments to the Bible or books of the Bible that were basically just cut out because, like, nah, this shit's not going to fly.
Yeah.
And
like the entire book of Enoch?
Yeah.
That shit's like a science fiction book.
Yeah.
What happened?
But there also is, like...
Alien.
If you look outside of the scope of just like Christianity, there's some interesting things you can gather from the context clues in religious texts. Like pretty much every religious text has this fucking giant mass flood event, and it's like they're all individually like, that probably didn't happen. Like Noah probably didn't grab like 2 giraffes and throw them on the ark, but at the same time, it gets a little weird when you're like, okay, well, why does every single fucking book have a very similar story?
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Just like dragons, too. Like, there's dragons in every culture, and they're all fairly similar. So, like, was there a creature like that? Like...
I actually have something pretty interesting to bring up about that. And I'm going to completely fuck up, the specifics of it. But there is... I was watching some kind of... It was probably some, like, conspiracy show, because I like... I do enjoy just watching that shit, even if I don't believe it. But there was one interesting thing I saw about... It was essentially a story about a knight who goes to a foreign land and slays a dragon, right? Well, it's in some Middle Eastern country. They find... what is essentially a picture of a knight from Europe who is killing a crocodile. So the interesting part about that is what we know as a crocodile now is established. I don't know when we established it, like everybody knows it as a crocodile, but in that time frame, he slayed a dragon. And it was a dragon to him.
Yeah.
And it was a dragon to them.
A large reptile.
Yeah,
Yes.
so maybe that's really just the definition. Because, like, I could see the stereotypical idea of a dragon to us, maybe to them being a large reptile that, like, spews up its bile.
Yeah, like literally like a Komodo dragon and Gila monsters. Like, they
Yeah.
literally fucking spit at you.
Yeah, yeah, especially if it's bile or some, like a strong substance, like even a venom, that would irritate your skin and burn it.
Yeah.
They might say that, holy fuck, it breathed fire on me. Like, no, it didn't, but, like, to them, that's what it was. And who the fuck knows? Reptiles could have had wings back then. Fuck it.
There's a running conspiracy that T-Rex skeletons are actually dragons. Like, something to do with, like, they think their bones were hollow and, like, the structure could have supported, like, material that they could have spewed out of their mouth. I haven't looked that far into it, but there's like a bunch of people that are like, T-Rexes were actually dragons.
How about the conspiracy theory that dinosaurs didn't exist? It was all a ploy by the archaeologists to make fuck tons of money.
There's got to be easier ways to make money than that.
Yeah. I've never heard that one.
Oh my god, it's I can't stand it. I hate it so much. We're not getting into that. We'll save conspiracy theories for another episode.
Well, but speaking of conspiracy theories, you could debunk a lot of conspiracy theories with this too. Like, you could go back to the JFK assassination and stand on the grassy knoll
and see where that fucker is.
Yeah.
I don't know.
At this point, though, isn't for like, I feel like the general consensus, like in the, I'm going to use this word I absolutely hate, the zeitgeist. Isn't it like basically that something fucked up happened there? Because like just the physics of the way that whole thing happened just doesn't add up.
Yeah, like for that one, I think I don't know. I haven't looked that deep into it. I'm not that interested in the JFK assassination, but I think there is a general consensus that there was potentially a second shooter. Like, I don't think that's that conspiracy theory-ish.
Yeah.
I think the one that I found that held the most water was that it was the CIA, because they didn't like how he was dealing with communist Cuba. So they were like, let's get this son of a bitch out of here and put someone else that we like in there.
Not that we can piece this head back together. I mean, what's done is done here. But it is, you know. I can see how going back, using this like time travel ability to just go back in time and either prove or disprove these crazy conspiracy theories would be interesting. Although it's also funny, you get back and people are like, no. It still happened this way. I don't care.
The time machine is just a government contraption that makes you see what they want you to see.
It's an Oculus Rift simulation. All right, guys, we've closed the loop for the podcast. It's time to sign off.
It's like the people who think that like GoPro is in with every major government, and that they have like fisheye lens so that when you send a GoPro up, it makes the Earth look curved.
Oh my god.
Even though it's not actually. Like, people think that GoPro is like part of a giant conspiracy theory to push
this episode Earth. Brought to you by GoPro.
Please?
I have a special amount of disdain for flat earthers. I just don't understand how you can be that fucking dumb.
Do you remember that video we watched, that the flat earth guy just like rambling on and on
about? The stars are souls guy, yeah. I remember vividly, like, we were having a discussion and we said something about this dude because he said he didn't have a lot of time, and Aaron fucking comes in and he's like, yeah, because the orderlies are coming back. And then I'm pretty sure we watch Iron Skies.
I mean, to tie this back to our original, like, history theme here, couldn't you guys, like, back in history when, you know, they thought the Earth was flat, they just, like, sailed to the end of it to see if it was there. Nothing's stopping these people from doing that. Like, why don't they just go?
In fact, it's easier now than ever before.
I swear they have some kind of, like, explanation that you, like, get to one end and teleport to the other or something ridiculous.
It's some sort of portal thing.
So it's almost like it's round. No, the Earth isn't round. It just operates like an Assassin's Creed map.
You know what's even funnier about it, too, is they just think the Earth is flat. There are many people out there that are like, the Earth is flat, but all other planets are fucking spheres. Like, what? What? That makes no sense.
Yeah,
dude.
wasn't it like Elon Musk who tweeted about something about like, oh, well, what about flat Mars theories? Like, of course Mars isn't flat. It's a planet, silly.
Yeah, it's...
You idiot.
It's so dumb. Oh, God.
I'm sensing Aaron does not like conspiracy theory.
No, I'm content to just listen.
Although, one thing that you did mention about how a lot of biblical texts are similar, and with this time machine, it might be fun to go back and look at this. The ending of Norse mythology is Ragnarok happens. And it is like the last war. Because all the gods die in this war. And so do all the mortals. Except for two. They're left to repopulate the earth. So I don't know if that part of Norse mythology was written in before or after they started raiding the Christians. Because as they started to raid the Christians, they actually adopted some of their shit. Because they're like, well, we're also kind of merchants. We're not just, raid and pillage. So they were carrying some, like, Christian shit because they knew it was expensive because it's fucking made out of gold. They're like, oh, we can make tons of money off of this. And then some of them started listening to it. So I want to know, when was it written in Norse mythology or spoken? Because they didn't have a ton of written stuff about the legend where there are 2 left to populate the earth. And where does that coincide with whenever the fucking Old Testament was said, there were 2? Because that would be interesting.
See, that's kind of what I was trying to get at with at the heart of like the theme of looking back on every religion having like a flood event and how, dragons are in every culture, but like technically dragons are real if you look at it as, it being a crocodile.
Yeah,
that
like
some random
yeah.
dude found. Like that is a real dragon to those people. My point being, like, if you had the ability to go back and look at all of history at any point in time, I think the coolest part about it would be to look at the things we know aren't necessarily true and piece them together and see how they overlap. Like, with that scenario right there, like, obviously there's 2 very similar events happening in 2 religions, and you see their cultures overlap at a certain point and kind of start to mesh together. We can logically say that like that's probably what happened, but you're never going to know the truth of it. Maybe there's some other event that happened there. It kind of makes the timeline, if time's even linear, kind of like kind of like a little bit of a puzzle piece where it's like, okay, this part happened here and this part kind of overlaps with this part, and that's why you get this weird thing. And that's, I don't know if I'm making no sense.
No, yeah,
but...
that does make sense, yeah. To completely go off a different tangent, I would love to watch an Egyptian mummification, like, just occurring. Like, how they actually did it.
I think we know enough about that
we
now
do.
that you could watch one.
It's not the same.
Again, not legally.
Like, the amount
You just gotta brush up, find a body somewhere.
Can we get a volunteer? There's 4 of us.
Please, I want to die.
Well, then you can't watch it.
Yeah, I know, it doesn't work. But yeah, the amount of ceremony that goes into it and just like how ornate everything was. Like everything had a purpose that was both practicality and even like the Norse blood eagle. Mm-hmm. Oh my god, to witness that.
Well, you're gonna have to give some background there.
You don't know what the blood eagle is?
I know like nothing about history.
Do you know what the blood eagle is?
No.
Okay, so it was a punishment. Blood eagle was a punishment. It was one of the... It was a punishment, but it was supposed to give you back your honor because of how fucking atrocious it was. So what they did was they tied you to 2 trees, spread eagle, right? Then they took your axe, and... Luke, could you stand up for a sec?
I can try.
Now spin around.
This is going to be very difficult to translate into the podcast.
Yeah. So, you can see where his spine is right here on the back of Lou?
Yeah.
This is the
They
one thing
would-
I'm subconscious about. Subconscious about.
They
know
would
what I'm trying to say.
they would take your axe and where your spine meets your ribs on both sides, hack into it, spread it open, grab your lungs, and then flip them so that they looked like wings. And then you would die.
Oh,
Thank you,
okay.
Lou.
You would die. I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Time.
But it was a very long and it was a very painful process. You usually passed out from shock before you actually died.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It was fucking atrocious, and I want to see that.
Ancient cultures are just so strange.
Along with crucifixions. Not just Christ's, even though Christ was kind of big, but because they crucified a lot of people. They just made a big deal out of Christ's. Like, not everyone had a permanent cross. Most of them were, like, replaceable. So, like, they were more like sticks in the ground, and then you were bound to another, like, basically a railroad tie with a notch in it. So they they would nail you down if they had nails. If not, they just tied you. And then they would lift you up and put you on this notch and like, all right, we'll see you later. And they'd wait till you...
Have fun suffocating.
Yeah, and then they would wait till you would die, which they would prolong by giving you vinegar to drink. it was wine vinegar, because they weren't going to give you water, but they weren't going to waste wine on you because you were going to die anyway. So they would soak a sponge and like point it up at you, and then be like, all right. And they'd keep doing that until the one day they came back and you just didn't suck off the sponge. You're like, okay, they're dead. Or if it was taking too long for you to die, they'd be like, all right, poke them right there. Let's get on with this. And they'd stab you in the side, and because you've been hanging, all the fluid build up in your lungs and the blood around it would just spill out. And they're like, that was more of a mess than we needed to do. They could have just hit you on the head really hard with a hammer.
I think I would not leave the hot tub if I had this ability. None of this sounds... This makes the cave bear sound pretty good.
Yeah, dude, fucking, like, ancient... The torture and punishment was fucking brutal. Like, it would make the Spanish Inquisition fucking... Ugh.
Yeah, the Greeks wrote about a Persian torture method. People don't think it actually was done, but they would basically put somebody... they would take two boats and like put them together like a turtle shell almost, so you couldn't move, but your head and your arms and stuff would be exposed. And they'd slather you in like a honey-like substance, and then they'd feed you like milk and honey. But they would just basically let the insects and rats like eat you while you can't move, and they would keep you alive and feed you and just let your wounds fester and be devoured by insects and rats and stuff.
I understand revenge, but just the impracticality of doing that.
Yeah, honestly.
Like, at the end of that, I'd just be like, this is a lot of work. Can we just kill this guy next time?
Like, the brazen... What would be interesting to see if they ever actually did use the brazen bull. I feel like everyone here knows what that is.
I thought that was like definitely something they'd used.
I see, I'm not 100% sure. Like, it's possible. There might be more information on it than I know. But, like, God, that has to be terrifying. You're putting someone inside this fucking bronze bull, then lighting a fire on it, and they had whistles in the nostrils of the bull. Some of them had whistles. Some of them actually had, like, a trumpet-like thing where you were forced to fucking blow on the trumpet until you died.
So that's not how I heard it. I heard it was just the scream. It was essentially like the echo chamber that when the person is screaming as they're essentially burning alive inside there, like the sound makes it sound like the sound of a bull.
Well, there were from what I know of, there were two. One had like a trumpet where they would put you in there and then they would make you play, and if they didn't like how you were playing, they would put more and more wood on the fire until you died. And then the other one was where it was basically just like whistles in the nose that as you died and your body steamed and burned, it would, exhale out the nose and it would make the bull noises. And they're not quite sure if they ate the person afterwards either.
Yeah, people have just found really creative ways to kill people, even if they never use them.
They're so extra,
and
though.
Really uncreative ways, like the breaking of the wheel, where they basically just break every bone in your body methodically by taking like a giant like wagon wheel and starting at your shins, and they just they'll put like a board under your bone that they're gonna hit, and they're just gonna smash your legs, then your arms, and you're like
not creative but effective.
I mean, they didn't have Nintendo Switch back then. I imagine that entertainment was few and far between. So it's like, I don't know, what are we gonna do? What if we slather some dude that we don't like in a bunch of honey, and then we get a ship, and it's
But that one works well with if you like crucifixion, because then they would take your mangled body and like thread it through the wheel because of all the broken bones, and then hang you up on a pole.
Oh my God!
To just display your body.
There's two parts of that make me kind of cringe. One, that's terrifying. Two, why do you know this?
I think it was on another podcast I listened to at some point.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
Yeah, like I don't know. I don't think I could actually be there to witness stuff like that.
No,
that sounds like physically painful.
Yeah,
but I am interested to see how people can actually watch that and be entertained and interested and want to go see these things.
Yeah,
because it just sounds so horrible.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. I would also like to go and see one of the first Olympic Games held in Greece, just to see how different it was. Because like they had like that shit was intense, and I'm not talking about camping.
Ha.
But like seeing them throw the discus and like shot put and the wrestling And I think they had chariot races in original Olympic Games.
And curling. Don't forget about curling.
I don't think they had curling.
No, they definitely had
I
curling.
don't think they had curling.
Yeah.
They used rocks and brooms, I think, back then. Yeah.
Don't.
They didn't have ice, so they just like slathered olive oil on the ground.
That's racist.
That doesn't even make sense.
It's okay. I'm Italian.
He got it. He figured it out. Oh my god. What else would be interesting to see? Because I can list like 20 biblical events I would like to go to see, but that would get boring real quick.
I mean, I would like to see the Western Front, World War One, so like
Oh, yeah.
1915, where you're in like the fourth wave in the trenches, and then they blow the whistle, and the first wave goes, they get 10 feet, they all get annihilated, and then a few seconds later, they blow the next whistle, and then the next wave goes up, and you're like, guys, why are we here? Like, you see what's happening? What the hell is wrong with everyone here? What are we doing? This is insane. And I just want to know, like, why these people did it. Because I know if it was me, or honestly a lot of people nowadays, you just say, fuck that, I'm out of here. Like, there is nothing you can do. Shoot me here. I would rather be shot here for deserting than doing that. Like,
Yeah, I think that's what people
Yeah.
didn't want, is they didn't want to be shot for desertion.
Was it the Battle of Stalingrad, I think, in World War II, where it was like the Russians were sieging the Germans and they ran out of ammo? So it was like the Russians would basically send their soldiers in to pick up guns off the dead bodies.
they'd send you in pairs. The first guy would have a gun. The second guy would have to follow the guy with the gun to wait till he dies to take his gun and use it.
Yeah,
God.
and if you said no, they just killed you.
Yeah. Dishonorably discharged.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess getting there, it's like not like with the World War I thing, it's like not really a choice. But I'll tell you what I would really like to see: the last wave, like the wave that like you're about to go, and then they're like, "Hey guys, war's over," and be like, "Yes!" Everybody there is just like made it just in time.
It would be interesting to see like the siege of Berlin. The Soviets coming from this side, everyone else coming from this side. Berlin is fucking surrounded. And it's just like the Germans are like, what do we do? Like, what do we fight till the end? What are our orders? And here asshole Hitler is in the fucking dirt somewhere, just like cuz his
What?
Dude, when the siege of Berlin occurred during World War II, Hitler's brain was so fried because his doctor had been feeding him a cocktail of cocaine, meth, heroin, other opioids, other uppers and downers all at the same time. He had a tremor so bad that they actually like pumped him full of heroin before he went to give speeches because his doctor was such a fucking idiot.
Didn't he also have VD for like 5 or 10 years or something?
Yeah,
crazy?
something like that.
Like to the point it like made his brain mush.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
the horrors will get you.
dude, he was a mess, and you can see some of the, I forget, was it like Project Valkyrie or whatever, the movie that Tom Cruise was in, where it talked about the failed assassination attempt of Adolf Hitler. They think that if that would have been successful, Germany would have actually won the war.
Huh.
Because it was already at that point that Hitler's brain was kind of like addled, and he was harming the effort more than he was helping it, because he was such a loose cannon and unhinged that he was giving his commandants like, all right, this is what's going on, and they're like, sir, that's suicide. I don't care. Do it.
Yeah, wasn't he like not actually a very good military leader? Like he was a great speaker, which is why he got to that point. But I remember hearing something somewhere. I'm again probably talking out of my ass, and I might be wrong. But like when they first stormed Normandy, when the Allies first stormed Normandy, they like woke Hitler up in the middle of the night, and they're like, "Normandy's under attack," and he's like, "No, it's not. That's impossible." And then it was.
Well, a lot of historians do note that he was very superstitious when he did their whole Operation Barbarossa to invade the Soviet Union, because he was very superstitious about Napoleon's failure and like was very intent on like not repeating Napoleon's mistakes and like doing things specifically different just because Napoleon did X, Y, Z.
You know what? Do you know why Napoleon? Like, I heard the reason Napoleon lost, the ultimate failure was when he invaded Russia. The buttons on their coat were made of brass, and in extreme cold, the brass starts to disintegrate, which happened in Russia's winters. So their clothing basically fell apart. And in the middle of like the harshest environment you could possibly be in, like extreme cold, and it just like magnified their losses. People are getting sick. People are dying from hypothermia.
I don't remember, but I think more people died from stuff like that than actual fighting.
Yeah, it's that joke you see online where it's like the biggest military failure is invading Russia during the winter.
Well, also, as the Russians were losing, they would cut their losses, raze their own cities to the ground, and then retreat. Because then, after they've burned, because as an invading army, you kind of rely on the cities you capture to restock.
Yeah.
And if they're just like, fuck, they burned everything. All we have here are 3 fucking bad potatoes and a moldy cabbage. We can't feed an army on this.
Yeah, Napoleon made it to Moscow, and he was going to winter there, and the Russians just burned down the city. Before he got there.
Yeah.
Well,
the Russians just didn't care. And what made it worse, too, is he invaded during the winter and retreated during the wet season, where it was just mud. Because Russia has 2 seasons, winter and mud. And it just didn't bode well. The other thing is, they said that Hitler was super superstitious. I want to see what he actually went after, because you hear all these myths and legends that he was looking for, like, holy artifacts and pagan artifacts, and, like, he was, like, trying to do this and that, like...
I don't know. I do know, I think he, at one point, claimed to, like, be, like, speaking to the ghost of Napoleon or something at some point, or something weird.
He frequented seances. That much I do remember was being
He was
said.
trying to find the Ark of the Covenant, too.
That's an Indiana Jones thing.
That's a historical documentary, though.
Yeah, right? That's based on true
Bro,
events.
I wish.
It's a recreation.
There are rumors that he was looking for, like, you know, the Spear of Destiny, which is the spear that pierced the side of Christ, that he was looking for, like, the Holy Grail. Like, there were rumors, because that's what they were saying. Like, they were like, why is he invading Africa? And, like, the rumors were like, well, maybe it was because he was looking for these religious artifacts. Like, or he was fucking nuts, or maybe his military leaders kind of had an idea what they were doing. Who fucking knows? Germany was weird.
I feel like there's tactical reasons to invade Africa
oil.
because of
Oil.
the 2 canals.
And oil. Tons of it.
2?
Or not 2 canals,
wars
but
usually fought over
the
oil or
strait
something?
and the canal.
I think so.
Right? Was
we
the
are
canal
American.
there at the time? Okay. I don't know anything about history, but that's the... I don't even know. The little where the penises don't quite touch.
Okay.
In Spain and Africa? What is that? Is that the Strait of Gibraltar?
What is he
So,
talking
you name a country and a continent.
No.
You know who's on the other side of Africa there?
No, I have no idea.
Morocco.
You're really good at geography.
I play history games that are
That's true.
historically inaccurate.
That
You know,
is
fun.
true. I see it's either you or Nick constantly playing Hearts of Iron.
He's been
That's
playing
not-
Hearts of Iron 3 recently, yeah.
Wasn't that like the ridiculously like buffed up, like there's too much shit to like monitor, like World War II game?
This is a good transition into our next episode on video games, but Hearts of Iron 3 is the best war game simulator ever made.
All right. Well, in that case, we'll catch everyone on our next episode where we will talk about video games. Let us know about some of the historical events or places that you might want to see. You can tweet at us on our Twitter. We have Instagram, Facebook. I don't think we have a MySpace. We should make a MySpace.
Yeah, we should make a MySpace.
We really should make a MySpace.
And OnlyFans.
Yeah. I could definitely put out some content on there.
You could just merge with mine.
Oh, yeah. Okay, check out Lou's
We'll do a crossover
OnlyFans.
project.
Yeah. Leave comments, like the video if you're watching on YouTube, 5-star reviews if you're listening on the iTunes store or Google Podcasts or, whatever. And let us know. What do you think?